You think the Blair Witch was just a clever marketing trick? A piece of horror fiction that fooled the world in 1999? What if I told you the story that inspired it runs much deeper, much darker, and it was whispered long before the cameras ever started rolling? Because in the dense forests of Maryland, something has always been waiting. The first whispers go back to the late 1700s, when a woman named Ellie Kedward was accused of witchcraft. She wasn't burned at the stake, like the stories of Salem. Instead, she was dragged into the woods during the dead of winter, tied to a tree, and left for the cold to finish. The townsfolk thought they had rid themselves of her forever, but the following year, every child who had accused Ellie vanished without a trace. No bodies, no blood, just silence. The settlers panicked, believing the witch had taken her revenge. By spring, the entire community fled. The land was left abandoned, cursed, avoided. Yet people returned. They always do. A new town, Burkittsville, was built on the bones of the old one. And with it came a cycle of vanishings, each stranger and more horrific than the last. In 1825, a young girl named Eileen Treacle waded into Tappy Creek. Witnesses swore the water rippled unnaturally, like dozens of hands clawing upward. In seconds, Eileen was gone, dragged beneath the surface. Her body never resurfaced, but for weeks afterward the creek was choked with bundles of oily sticks knotted into strange symbols. Children stopped playing near the water. Parents whispered of Ellie Kedward's spirit, always watching, always hungry. But the witch wasn't finished. In the late 1800s, 8 children disappeared into the woods. For days the town searched. When they finally found them, it was too late. Rustin Parr, a hermit who lived in a cabin deep in the forest, confessed. He admitted to taking the children, slaughtering them, burying their remains in shallow graves. But his confession carried a detail that froze even the sheriff's blood. He said he hadn't acted alone. He said a woman's voice spoke to him from the trees, commanding him. He said she was always there, whispering, watching, demanding blood. Before he was hanged, Rustin's final words were, "She made me do it." Tell me, do you believe he was insane? Or did he speak the truth? Because decades later, people still see her. Hikers who wandered too far speak of shadowed figures darting between trees. Campers hear a woman's laughter at night, soft and mocking, drifting just beyond the campfire's glow. Some claim to wake with bruises, scratches carved into their skin, as if unseen fingers had traced them while they slept. And then there are the stick figures, twisted, knotted, hanging from branches. No one knows who makes them, but they appear overnight, marking the territory of something ancient. This is the story the Blair Witch Project drew from, but the film only grazed the surface of a much older terror. You see, there's a pattern. Every generation or two, the disappearances begin again. The forest reclaims the curious, the reckless, the unlucky. Local police write them off as accidents. But the locals? They lock their doors. They warn their children. They don't step into the woods after dark. And yet, the woods always call. There's a story from the 1940s, rarely told outside Burkittsville. A group of men went hunting in Black Hills Forest. Only one returned. When questioned, he was pale, trembling, half mad. He swore he had seen a woman, pale and thin. Her limbs stretched too long, moving between the trees without touching the ground. He said the forest itself bent toward her, branches lowering like servants bowing to a queen. The police dismissed him. Locals didn't. They recognized the description. It was Ellie Kedward, the Blair Witch herself. But maybe you're still skeptical. Maybe you think these are just stories passed down to scare children. If so, why do they keep happening? In 1991, 4 college students vanished while camping near Burkittsville. Their tents were found slashed open, belongings scattered but no footprints leading away. The case was quietly buried, barely making the news. The families still leave flowers at the edge of the forest. The Blair Witch legend isn't entertainment to them. It's grief. It's unanswered questions. And that brings us to the 1990s when a trio of film students arrived in town. You know their names: Heather Donahue, Joshua Leonard, Michael Williams. You've seen their footage. You know how their story ends, or at least what Hollywood told you. But here's the part most people don't know. Locals begged them not to go. People warned them that the forest doesn't give back what it takes. They went anyway. And like so many before them, they never came out. Yes, you've seen the movie. But the lines between fiction and fact are much blurrier than you think. Because while the producers swore it was just a film, the truth is the inspiration wasn't fabricated. Those twisted stick figures? Those weren't invented by set designers. They'd been found in the woods long before. And the strange sounds at night? The voices? Ask the locals. They've heard them too. You can turn off a movie. You can laugh it off as clever marketing. But you can't turn off the silence of missing children. You can't laugh away the fact that Burkittsville's history is stained with vanishings, with deaths, with symbols carved into the earth. And the deeper you look, the stranger it gets. Some historians claim the Blair Witch isn't a ghost at all, but something older, something inhuman. They point to the land itself, noting that the Black Hills have been feared since before settlers arrived. Native tribes avoided it, calling it a place of death. They believed an entity lived in the woods, feeding on those who trespassed. Ellie Kedward may not have created the curse. She may have simply awakened it. And if that's true, then the Blair Witch isn't a vengeful woman's spirit. She's something far worse. So if you felt the chill creeping up your spine, don't forget to subscribe for more stories like this. Drop a like if you're brave enough to keep listening. And in the comments, tell me, do you believe the Blair Witch was ever real? Or is she still out there waiting for her next victim? The woods of Burkittsville have always been hungry. And when you look at the accounts too closely, you start to realize they don't just tell the story of a ghost. They tell the story of a ritual. Because every disappearance, every death follows patterns that don't quite add up. Take the case of Rustin Parr. His confession is chilling enough, but when police entered his cabin, they found symbols carved into the walls. Not words, not pictures, but runes. Strange markings, precise and deliberate, burned into the wood. He said the woman in the woods told him to make them, that if he didn't, the whispers would never stop. The officers who entered that cabin described a smell that clung to them for weeks. Rot, sulfur, something foul and alive. But there's more. In 1886, before Parr, another child vanished. Robin Weaver. She wandered into the forest and returned days later, shaken and pale. She spoke of an old woman who had lured her into a house deep in the trees. But when rescuers searched, they never found the house. Instead, they found 3 men who had gone looking for Robin. They were discovered later, bound and disemboweled on Coffin Rock. The crime was too brutal, too deliberate, to be the work of coincidence. Their bodies were arranged as though part of some grim ceremony. But here's the detail most leave out. When lawmen returned later to collect evidence, the corpses were gone. Vanished. Only the blood remained, soaking the stone. And that name, Coffin Rock, was etched into Burkittsville lore forever. Some say the witch takes more than lives. She takes the very essence of her victims, weaving them into her curse. That's why bodies vanish. That's why voices linger long after the people are gone. And the stick figures you've seen? Those are not decorations, they are sigils, bindings, pieces of the ritual itself. Some believe they mark sacrifices. Others say they are traps, lures, a way of confusing the living until they stumble too far into her grasp. When you study the reports, the woods themselves become part of the story. Compasses spin, landmarks shift. Travelers swear they walk in circles no matter which direction they move. Paths double back on themselves. Entire clearings appear and vanish overnight. This isn't just superstition. It's a design. A prison without walls created by something intelligent. And the deeper you go, the stronger it becomes. Local hunters whisper that animals avoid certain parts of the forest. Birds fall silent, deer refuse to enter. One man claimed he watched his dog stop at the edge of a ravine, hackles raised, whining in terror. The man stepped forward and found himself staring at footprints pressed into the mud. Bare human feet, small, childlike, leading into the darkness. He followed them. They led nowhere. The trail simply ended as though the earth itself had swallowed whoever made them. But the prince came back that night. Around his house, pressed into the soil outside his window. The legend says the Blair Witch doesn't always strike quickly. Sometimes she waits, watches, wears you down until you can no longer tell what's real. And that's why those who disappear often seem to unravel before they vanish. They fight with each other. They grow paranoid. They hear voices, they lose time, and finally they give in. The film crew in the 90s? They weren't the first, they won't be the last. Do you remember the final frame of that footage? One of the students standing in the corner, motionless, as if in a trance. That image wasn't just for shock value. It mirrors Rustin Parr's killings. Survivors said he forced one child to face the wall while he murdered the other. Over and over again, until the ritual was complete. That detail was never invented. It came from real testimony, written decades before Hollywood ever touched the story. So what is the Blair Witch really? Some scholars argue she's not a ghost, not a witch, but a manifestation of the land itself. An ancient presence that predates settlers, perhaps even humanity. The Black Hills, they say, were feared by indigenous tribes for a reason. They spoke of a dark woman who ruled the trees, who thrived on blood and despair. Ellie Kedward's death may have fused her with that entity. Her suffering, her betrayal, gave it a shape, a name. The Blair Witch. But whatever she is, she's more than a story. Too many have gone missing. Too many echoes remain. The most terrifying part? People who don't believe still vanish. Skeptics, thrill seekers, documentary makers, teenagers looking for a dare. The curse doesn't care what you believe. Step into the woods and you belong to her. There's a reason locals won't speak after dark. A reason some families quietly move away without explanation. They've seen enough. They've heard the laughter. They've found the figures dangling outside their doors. And if you think that's only in Burkittsville, think again. Travelers claim to have seen similar symbols in other forests across America. Knotted stick men, unnatural silence, even the same skeletal woman, pale and watching. Some believe the curse is spreading, that the Blair Witch is no longer bound to the Black Hills. So if you ever find yourself hiking and you notice the woods have grown unnaturally still, if you stumble upon a strange symbol swinging gently in the wind, if you hear a voice calling your name when you're certain you're alone, turn back, run. Don't look over your shoulder, because once she has your attention, it's already too late. The Blair Witch is not a film. She is not a campfire story. She is the whisper in the dark that refuses to die. And she is still out there. If you made it this far, you're braver than most. But now I want to know, would you dare step foot into the Black Hills forest? Tell me in the comments below. If this story sent a chill down your spine, make sure you like this video. And for more true horrors lurking in the shadows of history, subscribe so you never miss what comes next. Because legends don't end when the credits roll. Sometimes they're only just beginning.